Great, great. Welcome, everyone. Welcome Thursday evening. It's so good to hear you or see you. Thank you for joining our community conversations. Last week, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we had a town hall, and we felt like it was such a great, and these were topics that we covered, and we thought it was so great, and there was just so much more to talk about that we've decided to have this series going on for the month of May. I'm going to remind you that you're muted. If you have a question, you can enter the question in the box on the right-hand side. If you go to the right-hand side, there's a place where you can type in questions. During the question and answer portion, we're going to be able to unmute individuals so they can ask their questions directly. Or if it looks like time is sort of ticking, I might just read your question directly. And you can certainly, or maybe one of our hosts are going to help with that as well. Remember, we're recording this conversation so that we can share it afterwards for those people that aren't able to make it. Those of you who are on by phone, we won't be able to have you share a question, but hopefully you could text us and we'll figure all this out. So we've got 4 great panelists, and it's going to be a wonderful conversation about food security. We talked about food access, but it's about having a sustainable system, a accessible system, and also an equitable food system. Our speakers and conversationists tonight are Holly Friestadt. She's the food czar. She's the head of food policy for the city of Baltimore. We have Monica LaPenta. She's the executive director of the Italian Cultural Center and the Be a Chef for the Day program. She'll be able to share the incredible work that they're doing during this crisis to provide warm meals, about the really specific and important component of providing warm meals to people during these difficult times. I forgot to say that Ms. Friestadt is coordinating the food distribution, the funding, and she's going to talk about what she envisions we need to accomplish over the coming months. Mark Washington is president of the CHUM, Cold Spring Homestead Montebello Community Association. We'll get to hear from him about the needs that he's seeing right on the ground as a result of COVID-19 and what gaps he believes needs to be addressed, and talk too about who he's been partnering with to respond to those needs. And then finally, we're going to hear from Jeffrey Griffin, who's the executive director of the Franciscan Center, which has ramped up their services to meet increased demand. We'll hear from him about the work they're doing, their experiences with partnering with the city, and the organizational needs during this crisis. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us. So without further ado, let's get started. Holly, take it away.
Thank you very much, Senator. So once again, my name is Holly Friestadt. I'm Food Policy Director for Baltimore City. And I want to take a few minutes to share with you the city's comprehensive strategy for the COVID-19 food response. The first thing we all have to know is that prior to COVID-19, we had 166,000 residents on SNAP prior to COVID-19. We know those numbers are increasing, so our response is looking at meeting the need of 1 in 3 people in the city will be food insecure, is the prediction at this point. And so we need to be looking at a comprehensive strategy because we know that it will all need to be integrated together. So our strategy is fourfold. The first one is meal distribution. And so with meal distribution, if you're an older adult over the age of 60, we want you to stay at home. We want all the food to come to you if possible. So in partnership with the health department, they have Meals on Wheels and Salvation Army and Department of Transportation providing meals to older adults. We also will be launching as of next week home delivered boxes of food for those who are homebound as well. So in the meal distribution component, we really want to be able to see older adults stay home. We also have a very extensive what we call grab and go. And that's what we're seeing in all the schools around the city, the rec centers, many community sites. And the reason why we are seeing so many of these meal sites around the city is that it was federally funded and continues to be federally funded before COVID-19 and during COVID-19. So the day the schools closed, all these sites could remain activated. So it was a very first flow of funding, and it can remain throughout. So it's federally funded. and it's to provide the school and summer meals. So we have right now in the meal distribution, the city has served over 1.5 million meals at around 100 sites, give or take. But as it relates to your district, what we know is that Youth Grab and Go, there's 10 sites in your district providing meals daily. World Central Kitchen has just launched relatively recently, and they have one site at the Walter P. Carter School as well. And then with the older adults, as far as meal distribution goes, there's 15 senior housing sites working with the city to deliver food. So that's one part of the strategy, is how to get meals to people. The second part is food distribution. Really, it's COVID-19. This has to be a COVID-19 food response, not a typical food response, right? Our whole strategy in the past was get as many people together, feed them all together, and everything is upside down. It's a pandemic response. We don't actually want a lot of people anywhere, but we want everyone to have food, right? So it's a kind of a contradiction. So with the food distribution, we want people to stay home. So we have partnered with the Maryland Food Bank, and we are serving around 30,000 grocery boxes of food per month. That comes to 7,500 per week. And that's enough food for a family of 4, and it's shelf stable. In your district, the grocery boxes right now, there's 4 grocery box sites, 2 community sites, and 2 rec centers. And so that's around 660 boxes per week, serving approximately 2,640 people of shelf stable food. One of the things we're hoping to do sooner than later is we really want to be able to add produce into this strategy. So we're waiting on some funding and have a strategy hopefully in place to supplement these grocery boxes with produce as well. So the second part here is we already had an extensive food pantry network. What's really important, we want them to remain open. We want to support the food bank and these pantries to remain open and not to have any surcharges associated to them. So in this district, we have around 19 pantries serving, and one obviously soup kitchen. So that is the pantry network as well. And another part of the food distribution, and I'm so glad, I'm honored to be a part of this panel with all the people on the ground and the other panelists who are serving food daily. Because the city, we are so honored and thankful for all the community organizations and grassroots organizations who are feeding in their neighborhoods daily, tirelessly for a very long COVID response. So we are trying to help through linking philanthropists and funding to be able to support those organizations as well. The third part of our strategy is food retail. So in food retail, there's 3 components. The first part is SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. What's very important to know about SNAP is that many more people are eligible now than they may have been. It's still income eligible, but if you've lost your job recently or you are ending up skipping meals, you may be eligible. What is really important to know is everyone, please go, if you are experiencing any food insecurity, please go to Maryland Hunger Solutions, and I will give numbers later, but Maryland Hunger Solutions to be able to see your eligibility requirements and to apply, because in the months of May and June, it's easier to apply and you will receive your maximum benefits, and that is new. So if you're a family of 4, you could be receiving up to $600 a month. Whereas prior to COVID-19, a family of 4 could have been more around $300 a month. So it's really important to maximize the SNAP dollars. It's federally funded, and we want everyone who is eligible to enroll. What's really important on SNAP, we have been working 10 years, and I can't say there's anything good about COVID-19. But the only thing I can say is after 10 years of working on online SNAP benefits, it was COVID-19 that tipped it. So we are going to be getting online SNAP benefits in the end of May, meaning that you, if you're on SNAP benefits, can order online, pay online, and get it delivered. And so that should be rolling out in the end of May. There's some other SNAP benefits. I'm not going to go into detail, but maybe next month, Sender, we can talk about pandemic EBT. And other pieces that will be getting launched a little later, but not quite yet. The next part of the food retail is really helping with a grocery supplement. It's something the city will be rolling out in the next 3 or 4 weeks. We understand there's a lot of people who are not eligible for SNAP benefits or who are not receiving federal nutrition assistance. Those are immigrants. Those are returning citizens. Those are opportunity youth. And so we really want to have a customized, tailored approach for those populations where they're going to be able to receive some type of stipend or grocery supplement to be able to buy the food they need to buy. The program has not been launched yet, but please look forward to that in the next several weeks. And the last part of our strategy, when we talk about food system, local food system resilience, right? We're talking about urban agriculture. A lot of this work that I've just mentioned is food we're going to eat now. All this money's coming into the city, but it's going to leave. We will have consumed all the food, right? Well, this is the one area in this strategy where we can have a lasting influence on what our food resiliency looks like in the city. So we have 37 farms. We have many, many community gardens. And so one of the things we really want to be able to see is for these farms to, one, remain, thrive, and continue post food COVID-19 recovery. So the Farm Alliance of Baltimore, I'm really trying to support those efforts. As far as farms, we have, you have a flower farm. That's not going to quite feed you. And then we have the Greener Garden. But the next part, in addition to farms, is the farmers markets. And I'm glad to see that they're opening. Waverly is year-round. That is your farmers market. They also accept nutrition supplements if you're on SNAP or other federal benefits. And Govinstown Farmers Market is planning to open. So we really want to be able to see and support our urban farms and buy their products and remain. So that is the four-fold strategy. And I think I mentioned briefly, but I want to come back to it, is that we've been working with 211 and MAP, and they're the call line. So if you are food insecure, you can call 211 if you're under the age of 60, and MAP if you're over the age of 60. And there is a screening tool there. So if you call them and you're able to get around, we have a public website where you can see where all the sites are in the city. But if you're homebound, they'll screen you and you'll be able to get the grocery box delivered to your house. So we're going to really try to push people to these lines so that they can get the most appropriate food resources that they may need. With that, thank you so much for your time, and that concludes my presentation.
I'm going to unmute myself. Sorry. Thank you so much for that. We got a couple minutes. I wonder, is Mimi Demishaw on? Because we had a question since you mentioned the farms. I wanted to raise her question. So is she on? Okay.
I do not see her on right now.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to put it out there. Mimi, who's the executive director of the Pride Center of Maryland, was talking about engaging young people to connect them with the farms and maybe figuring out how they can be a part of the meat distribution sites, dairy distribution. How do we connect our young people, particularly now, school is ended, so we're going to have May and June. Well, how can they be a part of young people who are not just in school, but who are underemployed and who are out of school? How can they be a part of the food supply chain? Is there any thought about engaging them in the food supply chain?
Yes, absolutely. So there's going to be, am I on mute? I don't think so. Hold on.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry. So as far as youth getting involved, we do have many urban farms that are going to be looking to work with youth this summer. So Strength to Love 2 has been a farm that has supported youth. And I'm not sure, I have to check the status of some of the other farms as far as youth programs go. But I think my greatest recommendation is that with the mayor's office and with Tisha Edwards, we're really trying to get youth engaged. And so with like World Central Kitchen, they're trying to have volunteers, youth, be there to help distribute the boxes. So there could be many opportunities for youth to be able to get engaged. There's so much food that needs to be distributed through the city.
And then in addition, just to say, not simply the distribution part, but I think it really is important for our young people to be farmers, to be a part of that tradition of farming, of growing the food, of learning how to produce the food, that is true self-sufficiency that we really have to build going forward. I see you're smiling, so looks like that might be something that you support. And I know Mark Washington is absolutely interested, because they've got a lot of vacant land that we really could be turning into farms. And so that's something I know in our district we really want to lift up.
So one of the goals that we hope to achieve through COVID-19 is that we've been working with the Farm Alliance of Baltimore, and what's really needed and what they have lifted up with their farmers is a farm incubator. They really would like to be able to get the funding needed during this COVID-19 response to get a farm incubator that would be aligned and an opportunity for youth to be able to be engaged. We do have some great farms, but Great Kids Farm, is a part of the school district, but we do need to see a farm incubator in the city, and that's one of the goals, to really engage youth and to have it aligned and in a location near youth.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you. And then just one last comment we got from Marjorie. She says edible flowers are super nutritious.
They are.
So Eddie, so we will definitely make sure that we can get them engaged as well. I don't know if Monica's here. I know you have a lot to offer this conversation. So I want to, if you're available.
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Monica.
I'm here, but I don't see myself in the camera. Thank you.
That's okay. We can hear you. So we'll start there.
Okay, I'm here. I think it's more important that you hear me than that you see me.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for having me. It was nice to hear from Holly about everything that the city is planning to do and is doing. I can only speak for what we have been doing so far. We started the community kitchen. Our community kitchen was set to open in November 2020 as a mobile training on wheel, because our program is predominantly a skill-centric cooking program where we teach kids nutrition and culinary education. So our original idea of opening the community kitchen was to open in November as a mobile community training kitchen. For us, it was easy to open quickly because all our work was ready, but we went from 50 meals on March 24, 250 on March 25th to 523 today. So I believe we have 11,000 hot dinner delivered every day so far. It's a lot. We are happy to serve. We are predominantly serve the people in our closer community of the 43rd district, but we do go citywide. We have a 55 household in West Baltimore. So it's a lot of work. We provide fresh vegetables and fresh fruit daily. We provide groceries for a family of 4 every Friday. So to give you an idea, we are going to give away 250 grocery bags this Friday. And we are doing it raising the funding on our own. We start fundraising since the beginning. So for us, I think that the crucial thing is funding, to keep the funding going, because probably we can reach a household in a way that bigger organization can't. I think that our senior are now aficionados. It's 6 weeks, so they're receiving the meals every day. They're taking their medicine with our meals. We know most of them. Personally, we talk to them almost daily. We reach out to them to make sure that they have everything they need. Our list is growing daily. We just received another one, and I think there are other 2 set for Monday. So our list is really going up. We are lucky. We have many people that have joined the team. So our approach is not only focused on what we are able to provide now, but what we will be able to provide in the next 3, 4, 5 months. We have already done a lot of work to talk to the families and see what their situation is going to be at the end of July, when the federal subsidized unemployment is going to stop. We work together with many other community organizations like Harbel, with Chum, with Mark. And I personally believe that when we work together, we achieve better result. So I think it's going in, if it's fair to say, in this disaster, we have been able to resolve and activate fairly quickly to provide an incredible service. I'm very proud of the team that I have. So we learn how to do many things in 6 weeks. We learn how to run a smooth logistic that takes 523 meals out in an hour and 15 minutes today. So I'm pretty.
Could you talk about the importance just a little bit, and then we'll return to it, of the warm meal component? I mean, I think that so much of what the food and what you offer here, and also I want those of you who are the providers on the ground to really talk about the importance of warm meals. I mean,
absolutely. So that is, to me, besides my personal belief that a cooked and nutritious meal it gives you love and dignity. It provides a sense of care. It's not just a meal that you receive. It's a sense of, we really get a smile from the people that we deliver the meal. Why nutritionally, why a cooked meal it's important? There are so many reasons why. We balance our meals. We make sure that there is the fresh fruit that they need daily. Our meals are not frozen. We are making the meal from scratch daily. There are so many things connected to the warm meal besides the enormous sense of care. Receiving a warm meal that it's made for you, it giving you back the sense in a moment of you are completely detached from the outside, that you are important. So, and I have to admit, many of our seniors are probably the best supporter of this program. They keep calling and making sure that we keep the meal going, and they give us a suggestion on what they want. It's heartwarming for me in a moment where mostly I'm heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking. This is very good for our soul, not only for our body.
Absolutely. Thanks. And so Mark, so this is a good place for you to transition in and talk about, the needs, because you've been partnering with Monica, and a lot of us have been partnering throughout the 43rd district, and some of us haven't met face to face, but we've been working virtually. We've been connecting through our communities. We have 120,000 people in the 43rd district, but as Monica has said, we haven't limited what we've offered to just the 43rd district. We're doing things in West Baltimore and farther northeast as well. But Mark, could you sort of chime in and tell us what you're seeing on the ground and what you think the needs are?
Yeah, sure. First, Senator, I just want to thank you for holding this worthwhile conversation. It needs to be had. And I just want to say to Monica, you are an angel. Glad to see you face to face, so to speak. Monica was a godsend that she helped us during a quirk of the scheduling system over the Easter holiday break. So she responded in less than a day's time to help us feed a whole host of people. So you will forever be in my heart. What we're seeing on the ground is just a very intensified, actually even more intense food insecurity issues. That coupled with just the fear and frustration of the unknown of what's going to happen makes this whole issue of food insecurity much more relevant than it has perhaps been in the past. The need for us has always been great, and it's telling to see individuals in the community that have otherwise would have been supporting us in our outreach efforts to help those less fortunate to be in such dire need themselves. One of the things that we are most concerned about is whether or not this social safety net will in fact hold up and be able to support this growing need over time, particularly with schools being closed for the remainder of the school year and the uncertainty of what's going to happen going into the fall. We're really concerned that this social safety net, remain intact, but be fortified to some degree to help with what I believe will be an ever expanding need. In regards to urban agriculture and local farms, we're a little blessed at Coldstream Homestead Montebello. Of course, we're affiliated and associated with Civic Works and Real Food Farms, so they've been a godsend to us. But even that is, actually being strained as all the other resources. What I think we're seeing, quite honestly, is that as far as the food system goes, there should be, at least in some way, some type of food system localization that allows urban areas to actually address these needs. Not to get into the politics of it all, but we've seen what happens. We're seeing what happens firsthand when you dismantle those social safety nets that are there, not necessarily to support those who are undeserving, but actually to support those who are very deserving and are contributing in ways to help, as you could clearly see with those essential individuals who are working at the Giant or helping out at Amazon. I think we see what happens when all that is dismantled and starting to fall apart. So, from our perspective, that's how we see the whole situation unfolding.
Yeah, and you're a community. Thank you. You're a community association president. You've worked with Safe Streets. There's the intersection. What are you seeing? And what are you seeing in terms of? You said something interesting. There are those who are usually the ones that are helping. They are themselves finding themselves in need, and so that's the tenuousness of, I think, the early statement that Holly made was that, upwards of a third of the people in our entire city at any one point is sort of housing insecure, but also food insecure. And so as that grows, right, that again, the need for partnerships with the city, with the state, and local on the ground. So how do we keep people from, I guess, falling, right? Those who are not stable, how do we maintain that? What are your thoughts there?
I think that's the $64 million question. I will say, I believe the city of Baltimore is doing yeoman's-like work in trying to meet the needs. We're operating a shelf-stable food delivery site out of Monarch Academy that's fully supported by the city of Baltimore. But that overwhelming need is something that's going to have to be addressed, and already with this pandemic, you've seen the chinks in the armor, the interruptions to the supply chain, and what that means. You've seen farmers who have a product that should actually be made available at this time, particularly to those in need, having to actually destroy their produce. And so not having that system in place that would allow for all these entities that support nutrition, in my opinion, is something that we all need to work on to correct. We can't continue to go forward much longer with the situation in its current state.
Absolutely. Jeffrey Griffin is Executive Director of the Franciscan Center, also located in the 43rd District, providing meals and support, not just in our 43rd District, but citywide. So Jeffrey, are you on and are you able to join us? Can unmute Jeffrey. And
oh, can you hear me?
yes, we can. All right.
There we go. All right. Sorry, I don't have a
airball. That was sort of a hang time. So.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'm sorry I don't have a picture flashing up, but I'm probably sparing you, probably more than likely. So We're very proud to be in the 43rd district, just south Charles Village area. For those who might not know, we are 52 years young. We've been serving our homeless brothers and sisters for a long time, and we're inspired by the works of St. Francis of Assisi and the sisters who served with, in his memory. And so we're very lucky to have that proud history, and that histories and network has helped us with this this crisis that we're facing. Before this all started, we were typically serving anywhere between 350 and 500 meals a day. And most of those were, especially for our lunch, are individuals who are experiencing really tough housing situations, right? And so when this crisis starts, it was around March 13th. For us, we served around just over 500 people that day, and then we were getting some calls from Matthew Henson Association for in needing of help, and the following Monday is when we responded to Matthew Henson, and we were with them for all week, and we supplied them, just them alone, 1,800 meals the following week. So and it was funny because to get ready for this call is, I was looking back at our first email that we sent out to our network in mid-March, and we were talking about how the numbers, we couldn't imagine that we served 2,700 people or 2,700 meals that week. And here you flash forward and, we're typically, now we're doing 8,000 to 10,000 meals a week. Here it is May 7th, and we've already served 13,944 meals. And that's, it's a taxing, right? It's seeing my staff and their work is just incredible. The volunteers is, the way that they're stepping up, our staff. No one has called out sick in over 2 months at my office, which is, it sounds wonderful, but I'm also worried about their mental health as well, because it is a lot of stress. Half of our staff are current or former clients. So we have 16 staff members, part-time and full-time. So I'm consciously checking on every of our staff. They're the ones on the ground, and our social workers, our department is now basically kitchen staff, producing lunches. And so, we're definitely doing as much as we can with and I spend most of my time trying to fundraise, and I'm really surprised that anyone ever answers my phone calls anymore, because they got to know why I'm calling. And like Monica, when you speak about a warm, hot, fresh meal, you're speaking, our language. We share that language, and
I know.
And we also serve. Chef Steve Albright is our chef here, and we know the importance of, and what a hot meal can do for somebody, especially on this crazy weathers that we've been having, right? When you can serve them a fresh meal, it just takes you to mentally and physically to another place to get you ready to face the daunting day and the night that's coming, especially if you're sleeping outside, or who knows where you might be sleeping at, right? So that's, and my chef, who's likes to tell me, is even in jail, it's mandatory that you eat a hot meal every 3 days.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say right now.
So,
because Senator Washington knows that it's one of my thing every day. I keep saying that I don't know why I have to remind the functional adult why a warm meal is important. And I know that you share the same vision, because it is important. It's probably one of the most powerful things that you can do for an adult. For a human, it's giving you a sense of care, a sense of dignity that a boxed a sandwich cannot give you, especially because I want to stress this point, because Jeffrey and I are fundraising daily to get our operation running. I really want to stress that there is just as much as you can ask a human to eat a sandwich. I'm okay with providing a lunch, but a few things that I want to remind is that, one, cooking is not exactly the most popular thing besides a television show. So until 2 months ago, nobody thought cooking education was important. Now everybody's asking people to cook
Yes.
without any training, without any education. So it's fairly impossible, people, to happen. Okay, so we want to talk about training and culinary training. We can do it later. Right now, I believe that our focus and Franciscan Center focus is to guarantee that our people in our community get at least one nutritious cooked meal a day.
And that's part of the recovery. I mean, again, that's why I asked the four of you together, and this combination is that, yes, the box lunches are making sure that there's groceries that are provided, but there is a psychological, nutritional, behavioral component, particularly since this isn't just a 3-day storm. This is a long-term, sustainable, we have to really think months and months about the recovery. It's the psychological and nutritional recovery. So we have the public health recovery around the virus, but there's also what we need to recover. And part of that is having a food system that's sustainable. This is opening up the, now we get to have our conversation. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Monica and Holly. And now's the part where that we didn't get as much time in our town hall, is to actually, talk and brainstorm and get some of your ideas about what you've heard today. And so just to remind you, if you have a question, you can just type it into the question box there, and you can raise your hand. And if we can recognize you, we'll let you ask the question directly. But here's an interesting question, Holly and others, where and I don't know if it's been proposed. Apparently, it's been proposed in Texas that could SNAP benefits be used at local restaurants to support small businesses and expand the number of people who can obtain a hot meal. Would that be a possibility?
So I'm not an expert in this exact program. Michael J. Wilson would be very good to reach out to as well from Maryland Hunger Solutions. But my understanding, Michael J. Wilson. But my understanding is that we're in the works for a SNAP restaurant program in Baltimore City. I think we're in a phase, but it's also limited. So it's for populations who are homeless, for populations who cannot cook. And I think that's the same in Texas and other places, that we are looking into that in Baltimore. And I think it's coming soon. I have to double check that. But it's not for everyone. And I think that's one of the issues. And I think I'm really glad to hear everyone's conversations about hot meals, because with the summer feeding program, the way that it's designed federally, and with the fact that our buildings are all closed in the city, we've been forced into a method which is cold sandwiches, right? And meals that need to be served outside and that people can come and go. And so I'm very thankful for the hot meals. And in other circumstances with the summer feeding program, we would be able to do hot meals. And that is one of the limitations to the federal program, is that component. And I really wish we could be able to address that too. But we've been confined by the restrictions federally.
Also, Mark and Monica, if you have a question you want to ask Holly directly, or if there's something you want to propose. There's a question, Matan or Janae, there's a question I can't really see. It talks about issues of food insecurity last night. I can't fully see that. So maybe if you can highlight that or ask that question.
Sure, yeah. We have one question here, and it's from Elizabeth. And so the question is, we have families in Baltimore City public schools that are undocumented immigrants who have multiple children or generations in one household, 6 to 10 people. And are there substantial food sources that they can tap into since they're not eligible for food stamps? Saying that they've been blessed by the 43rd District Resource Team who've gotten a lot of resources and groceries to those families, but knowing that this might not be sustainable over the long term, sort of where's the funding and resources that can be tapped into to help with that, even schools, communities, to perhaps get groceries to these families.
So Holly, can you help with that?
Yeah, I can. I was
Our
waiting to see if
thoughts,
someone else was going to answer because I didn't want to take up too much airspace, but I'd be happy to answer. So as far as the response there, there's a few different strategies. One is the grocery supplement that's really going to be targeting towards immigrant populations, and to be able to provide some kind of, whether it's a debit card or a grocery card for them. We've been working with the philanthropists around the city and really trying to encourage and have organizations apply, especially immigrant populations, for funding. And I think that we've been seeing more and more nonprofits who are serving immigrants to be receiving some of that funding. The other piece is the school district. We're in collaboration with them. They're part of the team. So I think that calling 211 is another piece, because with the grocery boxes, it's not one per household. It's one per family of four. Sorry, one per 4 people. So meaning if you're a very large family or household with 12 people, you would get more grocery boxes. So that's important to know. It's not just for every family gets the same number. And I think that at the schools, they're not turning anyone down, is my understanding. And so that if you're showing up to the schools and you're needing more food, it's available. Another thing the school district will be rolling out very soon, they're in partnership with World Central Kitchen for meals, and they're doing the meal packs, 5 to 7 meals at 10 of their sites, and they have 18 other sites. But another piece is that they're going to be adding more fruits and vegetables to the federally funded fruits and vegetable program, and they are reworking it to make it a COVID-19 response. So I think that we have targeted very specifically when we looked at our map, and we are using data to drive where we are putting our grocery boxes and our meals. And so we're using 2 main data sets. One data set is SNAP, but that does not cover the immigrant population because they've dropped off really as of 2016. And we're using low income immigration data and to be able to see where there are other spots, and we're targeting locations specifically there as well.
I have a question for you, Ollie, if I may.
Yes.
You mentioned that there is a federal restriction on using federal money to provide a warm meal, but how is possible that there is no way to support organization like ours? And for ours, I mean my organization and Franciscan Center, and that are doing the work already through those funding, because that is the part that it's very tricky for me to understand.
Sure, let me explain this because this definitely needs to be understood, is that the CARES Act and the money that's coming was to support their existing federal programs. So it was more money coming into what already existed. This is one of the limitations of how the entire COVID-19 food response and food funding. So it was more money to SNAP, but not more money to people who can't get on SNAP. It was more money for those who are already serving the summer feeding sites. And so it was more to their existing federal programs. So that is a limitation of how this has been designed. It was supporting their existing programs, their summer feeding program, their SNAP program, their WIC. I mean, it's all great for those who are on it, and it's great that more people can get on it. One of the greatest issues, and Senator, you can definitely probably relate to this, is how this funding has been flowing. There was a very long delay, of federal funds, like the state applied to federal funding for FEMA and MEMA, and it was denied. And then we went to the state, and then the state was able to grant some funding to go to the food bank, but the budgets have been particularly tight. And that we're really hoping that with the city, we're using the money that we can get reimbursed back later to do city funded feeding. And right now we're funding with a food bank to get the grocery boxes, but it's been a really challenge of the funding sources and how it's been so limited to certain programs and certain entities.
And again, I think that that's what raises, and again, what we're uplifting on this call and in this work and our brainstorming is the importance of third-party partners and really fully, not simply using third-party partners to implement the existing program, but to be innovative and creative and responsive on the ground to the needs, to those who are who are 19 to 63. Right? Who, as Mark talked about, now find themselves, because they have a regular gig job that they don't have anymore, and they're not able to do so. So we have to, and we will, and should figure out, how do we do that? How do we really be creative? You know, maybe the city can buy the food and it can be prepared by the third-party providers. And it's, you know, we have Monica and Jeff on the phone, but there are others on the ground who are also doing this work. And so the other concern I know I'll raise, and they don't want to, is that there's a tendency to sort of fund one sort of large entity, and then that large entity sub-grants out. And that is not the most efficient, and maybe also they don't have the trusted relationship on the ground to fully implement. And so, again, I think something else that I know the people on this call and one of our folks wanted to uplift is the real importance to make sure that those dollars come to the communities, and that we really figure out how to make sure. I don't know if others want to have other questions.
Yeah, we've got a few questions in the queue, and I was hoping I could actually unmute a couple folks. We've got Emily Weber, who's got a couple questions. So Emily, if you can hear me, I'm gonna unmute you here. We'll see if this works. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead. I know you had a couple questions. If you want to throw one out to the panelists, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was wondering, Holly, when you mentioned the boxes of food for delivery, who gets these boxes? How can people get them? Is there a cost for them? You know, what can we do to get these boxes to people who need them? Oh, Holly's muted.
Holly, you're muted.
There, sorry. So the grocery boxes, if you go to the city's website, there is a list of all the grocery box sites. There's 31 throughout the city right now. And you can go to coronavirus.baltimorecity.gov to food resources to be able to see that list. Or if you want to see it as a list, you can go to BeMoreChildren.com. So there is 31 sites. We've been working really hard from the Department of Planning to work on community sites receiving these boxes. It's been really important to us that these boxes don't just go to schools and recs, but that they go into the community. And we say, well, we have a whole team of community planners working, trying to get these boxes, and also calling 211. They will be able to guide and assist as well. So that is one way to be able to get the grocery boxes. And we're going to be finding out on Friday, Sender, there's a USDA award coming out tomorrow for the produce boxes. And so those USDA will be actually paying for those boxes, and we have several companies, produce companies, that have applied for it. And so if those come true, then we will really hope to see more produce coming in as well through the USDA buying those boxes that can be distributed in Baltimore for produce.
And I think we have a really good follow-up question from Courtney. So Courtney, if you can hear me, I'm going to unmute you here. You should be able to ask if you're there.
Yeah, hi. So my question is, I'm a single adult, but I'm significantly immunocompromised. So during the pandemic, I can't leave the house without putting myself in danger and putting the community at greater risk as well. And so while I can afford food, I can't afford the ongoing costs associated with grocery delivery or food delivery. I'm wondering if the grocery boxes could be delivered at cost to people who can pay, or something along those lines.
So the grocery boxes, I would say that the best advice on this is when you can pay, you pay, but then you might supplement it with calling 211 and saying you can't. Right? Because in many ways, it can't be sustained over time, these delivery charges in these boxes. And really, if you're saying you're food insecure and you can't get out of the house, these boxes are meant for you. So if that budget is really extensive, then calling 211, you would screen food insecure if you can't get out and you can't afford the boxes. And so that would be 211 and then put you on the list.
Okay, thank you.
And did Emily have a follow-up, or is there are there other folks that have on the call who have questions? Okay, cool, great. Okay, Mark, yeah.
So, Senator, I just wanted to go back to the whole conversation regarding SNAP, and I think the one thing that this pandemic gives us an opportunity to examine are those punitive food access policies that are out there. And so hopefully this will allow a re-examination of those policies. But the other thing is, I think that there's an opportunity born out of this to show absolutely what government can do and what government and how government can function to support. I think this pandemic has clearly shown that we as a country can afford to help those who are less fortunate without any real strain to the broader population base. And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. And I'm hoping that we learn from this and that we will have that conversation.
And I had a follow-up question from Mimi that we got. She's actually on the line, but on phone, so we can't unmute her. But that is a follow-up to Senator Washington's question that is asking, are there funding opportunities or possibilities to pay young people to allocate and source the foods from farmers? And can we use on the collection of food from farms across the state, not just in urban areas? So using young people to fill the gap where we're hearing about across the supply chain. And so really the question is there funding, and can we find funding for that?
So there's,
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
so, and we can follow up with some links later, but there are several funds that are open right now. I think the funds for educational excellence, that RFP closes tomorrow, I think, for organizations to be able to apply. I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow. But those are for grants. And I think immigrant populations and hard to reach populations are definitely some of the key, and also youth. So it could be youth funding there. And I know that we can follow up with Maryland Philanthropy Network that there's ongoing coronavirus funds and food is allocated to that, and they do weekly renewal or approval of grants. The biggest issue that we're facing on funding, and I think that all the organizations here today are facing it significantly, is that these grants are relatively small and they have to keep applying. And what we really need to be seeing is how do we have, and I think this is really the big question, is how can cities, be able to look at contracts with nonprofits to be able to feed? And that has been something that we've been looking at best practices of other cities. Some of the cities have always had that built into their system. And so for Baltimore, it has been that the nonprofit organizations have always fed, but the city has not necessarily supported them in their day-to-day operations. And that's the same case. The state has also not really funded them besides the big ones, the Maryland Food Bank and some of the big guys. But that government has not necessarily stepped up, whether it's city, state, or federal, to support the nonprofits as a contractor, right? We see it with like Meals on Wheels gets it, for their home delivered meals. But I think that maybe that's one of the lessons learned for COVID-19 is for many multi-tiered government structures to figure out how do we use nonprofits as contractors for our feeding.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Senator, I like to say that as a government, U.S., federal, state, we don't take food is not a major priority. And you can see that by how much it's actually allocated for lunches and for in other areas. We got to realize that food is life, right? So, we have students, and we see it every day through ours, and as well as your partners is, when we have students who don't know where their next meal is coming from, and they're eating, unhealthy meals because that's what they can get their hands onto, they're not going to be as productive as someone who's getting all the nutrients, that they need, the milk, everything else that they need to grow and be healthy to help fight off diseases and viruses and to learn and to do well in school. So I think this, the city, state, everyone needs to, really, to be honest, listen to the people in the front lines.
Exactly.
You hear a lot about World Central Kitchen, but I recommend everybody to read his book. And I think people will be shocked to actually see the stuff that he says and talking about food and everything else. And I think he's got a lot of good points. And that's why I think it's worth it. But the state found money to pay him, right? To pay World
Right.
Central Kitchen. So
Right.
how does
Right.
that work, right? So anyway, so that's but I would say if we had the chance, we would hire youth, and we actually wanted to be part of Youth Works. I want those culinary interested students, high school students, come work with me. Come
Yeah.
to our kitchen. I want you to help me bring food to the masses and bring healthy food. And while we're teaching you a life skill, I think that's critical.
Absolutely.
Jeff, Senator, can we connect after because I probably have found through the Office and Family Success, we had to find a solution. Sorry, I'm still in the office, so the phone
No
is
worries.
ringing.
It's still working. We're wrapping. We're good.
So we got 4 youth this week, and 2 of them are interested in culinary education. So we are actually training them to work in the kitchen, and hopefully we will be able to transfer them in youth work.
Yes.
So I would love to transfer this information to Jeff if we can
Please.
connect after.
That's a great news story we need to hear more of.
I'll tell you more. So Ollie, I don't want to stress you too much, but
Monica, this is it. I mean, why we're doing this is that we want, we can't rely on just the news or the traditional sources to solve our problems, that our problems and our ideas and our innovation and creativity is like right here in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and we're going to work together and be a model and spread that love. I want to thank everybody who was on the panel today. I want to thank everybody that logged in today. This is the beginning. So this isn't a one-off. This is a beginning of a conversation. We're going to continue to move from ideas and policies and problems to solutions on an ongoing basis. We on March 16th, we started the 43rd District COVID response team. It's evolved into all of this work that we're seeing right here. Those of you who don't know, this is our contact information. We've got a hotline, the 1-800-291-5457. People are volunteering. We've got some really great resilient neighbors like Nick Speech, Mia Spenson, Mia Bloom, Sonia Merchant Jones, Jamie Alexander, Zach, Andrew, Jason, Rachel, that's just a few of the volunteers who've really been helping hands-on management and support for our vulnerable residents. Getco, Be More Foods, the Franciscan Center, Parts and Labor, they've been operating out of Be More Community Foods has been operating out of Parts and Labor. That's also in the 43rd District. We've got over 40 volunteers who are working right now. They're working at least 6 days a week. So I want to thank all of you for your commitment to your neighbors during this COVID-19 pandemic. But what you've heard and what we've raised, that this isn't, and just like the healthcare disparities, the racial disparities, the economic disparities, the disproportionate impacts of COVID-19 expose those gaps in our healthcare system, it's also exposing our social determinants of health, our social and economic disparities, and the problems. And in this particular case, we're talking about our food system and how we can take this and improve it. I want to give just a couple of closing remarks. Fill out the census, the 2020 census. We want to make sure that we have the resources we need, whether it's for food, whether it's for transportation, education. $1,800 per person that being counted equates to about $1,800 per person over 10 years. That's $18,000 of federal funding. It's probably going to be even more as we're looking at ramping up for the response and follow-up to COVID response. So I sit on the Maryland Complete Count Committee, and just look, let's just do that. Our next COVID-19 conversation, I'm sorry. Look, Baltimore City, we've got to get our response rate up. We're doing a little better than we did last year, but we're only at 47% of self-response compared to the state that has a 61% response rate. So get everybody to fill out that census form. You can call it in, you can go online and fill out get that information. So let's do that, get that census form filled out. Our next COVID response conversation is on the area of updates from our workers, from our employers, and some local businesses in the 43rd district. And so we're going to be joined by another panel of guests to really talk about what's happening on the ground, what we can do, and how we can focus and manage all this as a community. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us, for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your strength, your insights, and your hope. This is the contact information. If you had a question that you weren't able to raise on the line here, a question that we didn't hit, please feel free to send those. Please reach out. Please stay safe, be healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you again, and have a great night. Thank you all, and I appreciate your love and support. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
And we're out.